Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, venture capitalist, securities analyst, and advisor, Morty Davis is a Wall Street legend. In addition, Mr. Davis is an outstanding economist and highly articulate, incisive, and very entertaining political analyst and strategist. He's Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical economic and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the news making the headlines is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. My favorite people in the whole wide world, next to my immediate family and my kids, but you're my cohorts, and without realizing it, your comments and inputs after this program is over, because we don't take calls during the program, makes me think about a lot of the issues we discussed and the validity, when they're there, of your criticisms. So without realizing it, you have a great impact. And as my cohorts, to the extent that the program is worthwhile as we deliver it, I want to thank you for the role you play in helping it be a better presentation, more comprehensive and considerate of factors that I didn't think of. So thank you, God bless you, and keep up your input, even when you send me criticisms that initially may hurt. But even those make me wiser, because without some criticism, you just stick with your fixed views, and those may be out of kilt with the reality. So that's part of education. You learn from the criticism and from the comments that people make, and you particularly, your listeners of mine that I consider cohorts of this podcast, invaluable cohorts. So I want to thank you again. I love you. I wish every one of you the most wonderful every day of your lives. So I look forward to being with you every Wednesday, 6:30. Just as I am with you tonight. So without further ado, let's get on with the news of the week that we cover in this podcast. I would like to say for better or worse, but inevitably the news tends to be worse because good news doesn't make the front pages or the announcements, urgent announcements that break up your listening. Whatever it is, if you're listening to news or listening to a talk show or whatever you're listening to, they feel it's an important enough event to intrude on your listening. Even your most favorite programs, it's so urgent, they intrude and they announce it so you can be aware of it. They figure that's something that's very important to the listening audience. And therefore they announce breaking news and tell you what's the breaking news. Like only yesterday, Tuesday, there was late in the day news that an airplane at LaGuardia, I think it was at LaGuardia Airport, in landing, crashed into a fire truck, a rescue fire truck that was riding along the airport grounds, and somehow the people at the, what do they call the guys that
Air traffic.
the air traffic controllers didn't give sufficient notice that they were heading for each other, or that the plane was heading for that fire truck. And I think some people got killed.
Pilot, co-pilot.
The pilot and the co-pilot.
Yep, and maybe somebody, I think maybe even some of the people on the fire truck. Passengers were okay, I think.
Yeah. So that was the late breaking news Tuesday. And the other great breaking news, in some respects, somebody might even call that good news, because Trump announced late Tuesday that they were working with Iran for a resolution of the war that's going on, because Iran made such a great gesture giving a present to the United States that was worth a lot of money. He thought it was a great present, and in the billions maybe. And so it brought him back to the table to negotiate. Ruby and Whitcomb were handling it, I think. Maybe Vance as well. The Iranians didn't like Whitcomb and didn't like Jared Kushner in the negotiations. So they said they'd prefer to negotiate with Vance, the Vice President of the United States. And as of the latest that I was aware of, I didn't check recently, but that's where it stood. The possibility of an agreement to conclude this war against Iran, and in return, that was to be in return for this wonderful, enormous monetary gesture that Iran was kind enough to offer the United States. The terms of the agreement were never defined as of yet, but he made it sound like that gesture, getting all that money, I assume it was in the billions, and it constituted, as he explained without saying many of the details, but related to oil and, I guess, oil and gas. And so it renewed negotiations for some kind of negotiated peace agreement. And he was speaking in ways that seemed encouraging for the Iranians and for those Americans that would like to, for the money Americans that would like to see the end of this terrible war that we've been losing. Even though we don't have troops on the ground, I think in the last week we had 290 people maimed or killed. So we're paying a price in addition to the vast sums of wealth. It's not only blood, but treasures that was imposed on the participants. So that was somewhat evidence of possible good news. The relevant part was not the possible, but the actual enormous sum that Trump said that Iran was proposing to give to the United States, that convinced him and his negotiators that they were serious about coming to a negotiated conclusion.
Although it might not be this gift, might not be, a check. It might be
No, he
a
said
gesture of
he
some
said
kind.
he said it was money.
He said it was worth a lot.
No, he said in money. He used the term money. He didn't say it's a gesture. He didn't say.
No, but he didn't.
He said I heard him say it was money, a great deal of money.
Worth a great deal of money.
Yeah.
So.
And when asked what it was, he said it was related to oil and gas.
So I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
I'm just saying, since we don't know the details or the nitty-gritty hasn't been negotiated, we don't know that it is going to occur. But I said it's potentially a good sign for those who would like to see this activity concluded. So those were the breaking news. And you always have breaking news every minute of the day with Donald Trump and the war process. As a matter of fact, at the same time, it was announced by Ukraine that they experienced tremendous amount of attacks from, what do they use?
Drones?
Drones. A record number of drones were hitting Ukraine. So it hardly brings a happy conclusion to what's going on, but at least there's a sense that there might be, even in the bad news, some hints of good news.
But that doesn't mean we still don't need that book, though. Right?
Right. And it doesn't mean, as Reagan said, and as often repeated by those in favor of spending more and more and more for defense spending, or now it's no longer called the Defense Department, but war spending, peace through strength.
Yep.
And we are by far the strongest in the history of the world, the strongest in every which way, in defense and offense. And with that, there's no evidence, or there's evidence to the contrary, that as much as we spend, record numbers each time, and record numbers added to the enormous we're already spending, that we're more in conflagrations, more wars than every country in the world combined. Since the end of Second World War, we've been in more wars. We ourselves, I'm not talking about on behalf of allies or anybody else. The United States has been in wars starting at the end of the Second World War, which ended in 48 or 45. The Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Iraq War,
Two Iraq wars.
The Afghanistan wars, the war in Venezuela, the innumerable wars, and the immense loss of lives and and blood, not only lives but wounds, and the people will be paying for the residual damage to our soldiers for the next half a century at least. It's unbelievable. We've been in more wars than every other country, notwithstanding peace through strength is our motto, and with the least peaceful in the sense. If anything, our behavior contradicts the validity of that statement. So we have not peace through strength, but more and more wars through strength. Because we wouldn't make those moves if we didn't have this powerful role that we play as policemen of the world, or events that trigger our ire and cause us to enter into conflagrations, wars. Okay, enough about peace through strength. I wish it was true, because we keep adding immense funds to the budget for defense. Unbelievable. Well, even in wars, in the Second World War, we've never had a budget of the magnitude that we have now. It's just, but this motto persists. So let's get on with the news of the week that I always have to apologize for, because that's the nature of this civics podcast, dealing with the breaking news, the current news, the major news that breaks into our listening habits and is persistent almost daily. The wars that break out, the number of people killed in these conflagrations, the fires in Florida, the floods, the hurricanes, the tsunamis all over the world, the mass shootings of kids in first grade or even kindergarten, and their teachers, but by some madman that occurs on a regular basis in the United States. I think primarily because of our love for guns and ownership of guns. We have more guns in circulation than we have population. We have 420 million Americans, and the number of guns we have is a multitude of that number. So, since the news is so depressing, and that's what we report on, and that's what depresses me, and would depress any normal person because of the nature of those events. Floods, fires, I don't even know how to describe all the negative events. So I have to apologize for bringing you those, reminding you of those. I think all of us would like to, as they occur, we try to forget them, even though they touch us, and they're hard to forget. Nobody forgets the shooting in Connecticut of all those kids, young kids at the age of 5 or 6 that was slaughtered by one of these mass shootings.
Sandy Hook
and their teachers. we try to forget it. I try to forget it because it's so harrowing. It's so unbelievable that human beings can do it, something like to each other, without provocation, without reason. They're totally innocent people. Not only kids at school, but in churches and synagogues and theaters and conferences, almost one every single day, mass shootings. So I start off apologizing, but that's the nature of this podcast. If we were to give you good news that hits the headlines, the program would be over before we announce the first event of the week. So it's harrowing and it's depressing and it depresses me. And I'm sure as we deliver it, and remind you again, if you don't remember it during the past week, must surely depress you. So I apologize. And that's one of the reasons I have my latest published book called, if you have it on your screen, as you should, if you're watching it on screen, this podcast, it's called Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. And at the bottom of that page, cover page, it doesn't show on mine because my screen isn't big enough, but it probably does on yours if your screen is bigger. It says how to be happy no matter what. So I want to remind you how I got to write this book, because I used to be depressed by events of life. And I remained in that kind of depressed state almost perennially till I ran across a book by a brilliant Catholic bishop named Bishop Sheehan, who led a Catholic church, one of the top Catholic churches in Midtown Manhattan, New York. And the name of the book was The Power of Positive Thinking. And what it advocated was, and when I read the book, it hit home because it took me away from always being depressed about what I hear and taught me to think positively no matter what. So that book, since it changed my life from being depressed and even with bad news, I immediately try to derive some positive stuff from even bad news, and from unpleasant news or difficult news or failures of my own or whatever. I always have taken since then a positive view, and it's uplifted me and enhanced the contentment of my life. I use that term instead of happiness because, as I point out, in this country, in the United States, we think of happiness as people, slapping each other on the back and laughing and enjoying the benefits of the bottle of vodka they just finished, or the addictive drugs that give them a high, which actually have a very temporary impact. And by the time the happiness effect wears off, it gives them headaches and gets them sick, and they're more miserable than they were before. So that book, because it changed my life, inspired me to do that for my children, my wife, my spouse, my best friends, my neighbors, my fellow American citizens, my fellow human beings. So I spent 12 years writing this book, and I was still writing, researching all the sources of encouragement and uplifting ideas, how to be more, not happy, but what's the word?
Content.
More content in life. Real happiness, but not the kind that we often think of as happiness. And then at the same time, about the same time, I ran across a book by one of my favorite authors at the time, Dale Carnegie, who had written a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it helped me in my relationships with my friends, my relatives, with everybody else, and in my growth as a salesman and a communicator. So I read a book called Stop Boring and Start Living. Those two books changed my life. So I decided to gather whatever knowledge I could along those same lines, including Dale Carnegie and Bishop Sheehan's, but all the great biblical wisdom and great philosophers, all the rabbis and ministers and philosophers, all the way back to the beginning of civilization, all the way back to the Greeks, Greek philosophers, Plato and Aristotle, and all the commentaries. Tremendous library of communication that's invaluable. And I worked on it 12 years, and I was still working on it till one day when my daughter, because I felt there's more, I just didn't want to give up. I wanted to give you everything I could to create that enhancement,
Contentment.
that contentment in your life, true happiness. And so after 12 years, my daughter read the book. She's written a number of books on advice and happiness. And she said, Dad, I read your book. It's fabulous. You should get it published right away. And I said, I'm still working on it. I'm still gathering even more information. And she said, it's great. Publish it. And I said, well, just a couple more years maybe. And she said, no, I'll help you finish it. And she joined me for 2 years, and I finished the book. And that's the book you see before you, if you have your screen on. And it's been so rewarding for me to get the feedback from all those people that have purchased it and all those people that have received it as gifts, telling me how it's enhanced their lives. It's been beneficial. It's been the best book that they've ever spent money on, and the most valuable gift, priceless gift they've ever received. So with all that information, and no negatives, really. I'm looking for criticism. All of it's been so positive that I made this offer. If you run out and get this book right away, do it right away. If you delay, usually it gets canceled or postponed, and you never go about it. And you don't find it immensely beneficial and engracing your life. And what's the word again?
Contentment.
And making your life much more content. Send me back the purchase slip that you paid for it, or even if you got it as a gift, the purchase slip of the person that gifted it to you. Ask for a copy, and I'll send you back not only your money, but double your money, which is the best offer anybody ever made. Even those companies that say if you try their drug or their supplement, they'll refund your purchase price. This is a profit right away. Double your money back. And you can keep the book as well. So if you choose to buy 50 books, I won't appreciate it. You're just looking to make a profit. And you could also tell a fib and say you didn't enjoy it or you didn't benefit from it. I trust you, but I haven't gotten any of that. So run out. Don't waste any time. And I promise you, it'll help you get over the depression that this program, this podcast, is inevitably presented or designed such that it has to lead to depression, because the news depresses me. So do it. It's a win-win situation. You benefit from the information and the ideas, and if you choose and you don't find it immensely beneficial and the best gift you ever got or the best purchase of a book you ever made, I promise to send you back double the price on a purchase slip. So good luck. Run out and get it. God bless you. And now let's get on with the
Okay.
news of the week.
All right. So, we started. We had a brief conversation about this starting topic about 6-8 weeks ago. The government shutdown. What I thought would happen would be not much for a while, and then when people start getting, when workers, TSA workers start not getting paychecks and start calling out sick and quitting, and then the lines in the airports get bad, then you'll start to see some negotiation, and that's exactly what's sort of happening, because this partial shutdown has been going on a long time, but like the last time,
zero successful negotiation.
Right, and the same thing happened the last time for months, or not months, but until the transportation secretary told the airlines you have to start cutting flights because the ways are unsafe. And then inconvenience led to negotiation. So I think we're starting to see the same thing here.
The ones that rule the skies for the airlines,
So in the towers you have the air traffic controllers, but they're not. They're being paid because they're not part of TSA.
Oh, they're being paid?
Yeah, the TSA is the people that run the metal detectors and the screening, the baggage screening. So Homeland Security, that's so air traffic is not part of Homeland Security, so they're still being paid. They weren't the last time, but now this time they are. That's why it's kind of this partial shutdown. So now you have TSA, which is the screening and the baggage and the security part of air traffic. And those people are now starting to call in sick and quit because they haven't gotten paid in 6 weeks.
What a surprise.
Yeah.
They want to get paid.
Right. They need second jobs. They need to get to work.
Yeah,
and so
they've looked for new jobs, or they're working
Right.
part-time at other jobs.
So the stalemate has been over, what we see happening a lot now, where one side ties the negotiation to some other issue they may feel strongly about. In this case, the funding of DHS, Department of Homeland Security, which oversees TSA. Democrats are tying the funding of that to reforms they want for ICE, for the immigration police. So originally part of that was they weren't happy with Kristi Noem, and
She was the head of
DHS, and so
DHS being
Department of Homeland Security, which oversees TSA and ICE and other things, Border Patrol, and so she was fired by Trump, and we just saw this week her replacement, Mark Wayne Mullen, being sworn in by this, confirmed by the Senate, and sworn in a ceremony in the Oval Office.
He hasn't been confirmed yet, has he?
Yeah, he was confirmed and sworn in.
Yeah?
Yeah. In the ceremony in the White House just earlier this week. And so I guess the first question is, what do you think that this new DHS head is going to have any change in the way that ICE operates? Because that was a big reason for Kristi Noem's firing, is some of the things she said about the people that got killed by ICE being domestic terrorists and other things which didn't sit well with a lot of people. So I guess big picture first, you think that, this guy's going to be better than Kristi Noem, first of all. And do you think it's right to sort of tie these other issues? What is funding TSA have to do with reforming ICE, and should it?
The phrase that you just used, the big picture, is one that hits me as lacking in our domestic policy. I am immensely impressed with China's management of their economy, of their various aspects of planning their growth. They always have a 5-year plan, and it defines the big issues under which come many of these sub-issues. We're talking all the time about some inspiration that Trump might have overnight and suggest we pass this bill or that bill. And I think the Chinese have shown that every great business could never operate without, planning 5 years ahead. And here most of what we're looking at all the time, each week as we discuss this, as I discuss it with Len Carter here, who, as I've described all the time, is a genius. He's graduated at the top of his schools, at the top class of his schools, as an electrical engineer from 3 of the greatest schools in the United States. Cornell University, a great Ivy League school, from Harvard Business School, where I graduated, from the #1 business school in the world. I graduated with honors, as did Len Carter here. And he graduated from advanced degrees at Stanford. in his field with honors. And Stanford is the #1 university, not only in the United States, but in the world, in turning out genius, technical breakthrough entrepreneurs that have become billionaires. Some of them even while they're still at school at Stanford, like Google was developed by 2 young Russian Jewish students who developed the Google, which is worth not hundreds of millions, but billions. So he graduated from that great school with honors. So I'm delighted that you chose to join us again.
Thank you, Morty.
I have to push him hard because he gets paid thousands of dollars an hour by major corporate clients and by countries to help them do their forward planning and their design of how they spend their money and how they're committed to certain ideals. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we're privileged to have him on board. So now I started to say, the trouble with what we do, if you look at all the things you bring up today, it's single laws maybe on voting that hits some nerve of some senator or congressman, or particularly Donald Trump, who suddenly has a view. He may be right, that we should have required proof that you're a citizen in the form of some legitimate government document that says you're but it's just one tiny bit of all that we have to address, and then he's on to tariffs and big issues, but part of a much bigger map. The taxes and that taxes defines what the government feels deserves priorities. So they use the tax to subsidize things that they feel is essential that private industry is not motivated to fund, because it takes years and years for something to occur, like research on major medical breakthroughs, all kind of, developed global positioning, satellites that help us define our daily lives these days. So government does important work with taxes, and that's one of the overriding key issues. And all of these issues may have relevance, and even some good points about them, and maybe ultimately should be part of a plan, but not this momentary urge or inspiration that we should have tariffs on certain products and not on others, on certain countries and not on others. So many things are just top of them, momentary insights that are there.
Well, I think there's 2 issues, 2 parts to it. One is, the idea and the demands or the desires of some of these modifications, and then does it make sense to tie that with other things? So, the first question is, are these demands that the Democrats want, limiting masks on ICE agents, IDs, body cameras, restrictions on not raiding hospitals or schools or houses of worship. Are those good reforms, number one? And if we say yes, then should we, just because it's yes, does that mean you tie it in with the funding of TSA? What does it have to do with TSA?
Leonard, those are good questions, but should come under the design of the plan. So if it makes sense in fulfilling the plan, then they should be introduced, but not suddenly have one idea. Let's as we did a few weeks ago, let's take over Cuba. Or let's take Greenland. That may be a great idea, but it has to fall within a plan and make some sense within the plan, and not in the process alienate countries and threaten countries' very existence. So I still think the Chinese demonstrate, and they've done that by converting what was a communist country that was going nowhere, and mostly peasants and farmers, and 99% of the population was doing farming, family farming, and has grown into a powerful world entity, one of the major countries in the world. After the United States, the major country, the major economy. It shows you the success of, and there's not a
well, is that an argument for totalitarianism?
There's not a major corporation that's successful that doesn't have plans under which all of what they implement falls. They don't just get up one day and it could be something could be brought up and say, within our plan, this would be a great concept, but it's within that plan, not the inspiration, let's take over Greenland. And I'm not being more particularly picking on Trump, because he has a lot of good ideas, but there shouldn't be, seat of the pants decisions. There should be actually, presidents, when they run for election, those that do run for election, have an agenda that define their platform, and that's called the plan. It's all of the things that they like to get done, as well as the ones that are looking to reach the people and touch their sensitivities and hope to get the vote. So congressmen and senators that are those candidates for Congress or Senate or any government position usually come up with ideas that appeal to this week's need. Eggs are high, so let's subsidize eggs. That's not the way you run a company. That's not the way you run a country. If it's under some category, then you look at it and you put it in that plan, or you disregard it because it's not part of some greater important plan. You got me, Leonard?
But even a forest is made from trees, right? And so at some point you have to drill down and deal with the granularity of the various issues. So you have a plan, yes, a big picture plan, but at some point you'd also have individual particular decisions and tactics to follow. For example, the SAVE Act. 80% of the country approves. That's one of these 80-20 issues.
What?
SAVE Act is the voting act that requires proof of citizenship, to vote. And
So why is that so urgent? We've lived with the current voting status since the inception of the country. It's only, as some define it, a way to have many people
voter suppression,
getting documents.
Right. People argue on the other. People who aren't in favor of it argue it's voter suppression, and if the statistics show actually a very small number of voter fraud cases or accusations. So it's a problem in search of a solution in search of a problem.
As part of the larger plan, the government should make it much more readily available to get documents that prove your citizenship, not make it difficult to get any, if they're not traveling.
Right.
As many.
Not everyone has a passport. In fact, most people don't have passports.
Right. And even accessing your birth certificate is difficult if you haven't got the original. You got to go and ask for it and give information, and they got to confirm the information you're giving them is accurate. So it's not one of the urgent needs, but it's treated in the SAVE Act as one of the important we got to implement. Right?
So and so much so that we have to tie it in with the reopening the government.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we just fund? I mean, the argument is let's just fund TSA or DHS without ICE or whatever, and then we can deal with those issues. Take it one step at a time. But the president said, "I'm not going to sign." A DHS funding appropriation unless it also includes the SAVE Act. So it's
under a larger overview plan of everything. They both have merit, these points, but they have to make the case that it fits within, and it's a high priority to deal with as part of your plan. There's lots of things that may be good ideas. You don't just throw them out and say, let's pass this, which we do. Trump has an inspiration, or some congressman or senator has another inspiration, or somebody's running for election and gets a lot of votes by bringing up some specific idea that appeals to his segment of the economy.
So dealing with the practicality of the issue for a moment, we have government workers who are not being paid. They're being hurt. You have travelers who are being highly inconvenienced.
Right.
How do you solve it? Do you think one side's right and wrong? Do you think, you watch conservative media and they say this is all the Democrats' fault because they refuse to, they have these ridiculous demands.
What part of the...
And then you watch the liberal media and they say it's all the Republicans' fault because they control the government and they should be able to get this through.
What part of the government's plan, 5-year plan, calls for this closing? There's nothing in that plan that would call... China never closes down. It's counterproductive.
Right.
It's self-destructive.
So how do we deal with the issue at hand, though?
You want to punish the other side, so that's the only way you can reach them. They even took away the, what do you call it? What do you call it when you speak forever?
Filibuster.
Filibuster.
Well, they always debate whether to do that.
What?
There's always,
I know.
They're debating whether to do it or not.
There's always a debate of every single issue. There's always some merit, otherwise they wouldn't bring it up. And some of them, at the time they brought up are very exciting. But then that's the point of that's why corporations have a 5-year plan to it, at least 2-3-year plan. I know anything they do has to fall within that. And at board of the directors meeting, if somebody comes up with an idea out of blue sky, out of the blue, they look at the plan. Where does this fit into our plan? If the guy can make a good case that it absolutely fits well, and everybody agrees to that, then it will get enacted. But closing down the government has never been considered by either side as constructive. It might be convincing, but not constructive. You know, you want to get things moving, you got to vote on this for us. You don't want to vote with us on it, we'll close up the government. That's childish.
It is, but how do we deal with it specifically? Not.
You have to have an.
I understand, but that's easier said than done. We're dealing with.
That's what I'm saying. You have to done it. The Chinese have done it.
Right, but what do we do now?
It works.
What do we do now? Do we just fund TSA? Do we tie TSA to these other demands? Do we require the SAVE Act to be done along with the TSA funding?
I got to know where does it play a role in our ultimate overall priorities and goals? Not everything has valid, even convincing reasoning has a priority or an urgency. But if you have an overriding plan, like you can't come to a board of directors meetings and suddenly introduce, I had a great idea last night, and I think you should all hear it, and we really should get this. They don't operate that way. We don't do it on instinct or moment or insight. We don't live life that way. You wouldn't do that with your family.
So, all right, that's the big picture. I guess we're about out of time, but...
we're out of time already.
We are.
We didn't discuss anything yet.
We
discussed an important point.
Yep.
We should continue in the future.
Yep, well, we will.
About the validity of planning. You know, I hate to make the Chinese government a hero because they're considered communist China, but to show how good their plans work, their plan calls for growing the economy and do whatever it takes to grow the economy as fast as they could and take people off
do you think you could,
the farm.
Do you think you could do that without having a totalitarian world, country? Yeah, I mean, that's...
That at the time when people run for president, they do it in England because the guy who gets elected has an agenda.
Right, by definition has a majority.
And if they vote somebody that's voted against even by a minority and doesn't carry...
Yeah, it blows up.
Yeah. So it's not only communist, but we what do we do to it? Pejorize. Because it's China and it's communist China. Even the worst societies could one day come up with a good idea that we should incorporate. You don't get involved in what the country is, who's proposing it. You try to see if it falls under your priorities and your desired goals.
All right. Thank you again, Morty. A good discussion.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh my God. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, as always.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you all for being with me Wednesday, 6:30. I look forward to it. Next Wednesday, 6:30. Have a great week. Every day of your life should be better than the day before to eternity. God bless you all. I love you, and I hope to be with you again next week, God willing. Thank you.